So in today's video we're going to talk about how to drop the club and whip it through. It's an area of interest for lots of golfers, and what I'm going to do today is I'm going to change the layout slightly of the video. So the thing that's prompted this is my online academy. So my online academy is where I give a swing analysis to students and then I direct them to the best practice routines that are available to them. And if you're interested in joining, you can do it. There's information below. But what I've been saying to my online students recently is be careful how we're practicing. Okay, now there's a couple of rules that we're trying to look for with practice. One is repetition, okay, trying to do as much repetition as we can. And the second thing is we're going to try and theoretically concentrate on one thing at a time. Now that can often be a bit complicated in terms of is one thing really two things or three things, but you get the idea. Now, what we're looking to do today is we're looking to drop the club and whip it through as opposed to do things like, get flicky and scoopy. So the way that you're going to try and prioritize this whipping it through and dropping the club is very much the functionality of this arm. Now, what we're going to do is if you want to whip the club through, it's the same as if you were going to sort of, whip anything through, right? Skim a stone. It's the functionality of the trail hand. If you do this, you're not going to whip it through. If you do this, you can. So it might be worthwhile doing some practice swings where you turn the club upside down to take the weight of the club out and just sort of, keep your head back and just feel that club whipping its way through as I'm sort of demonstrating here, right? Whip, whip, okay, as opposed to this. So you tend to find it's a movement in isolation that you can do on its own. The difficulty you're going to have is obviously trying to do this type of movement when hitting a golf ball, and that's exactly the process that I'm going to talk you through now. Now, I was hoping to keep an eye on what the FlightScope data was showing me, but for a couple of technical issues, I'm not going to be able to. So now my phone is over there, so I won't actually be able to see the data, but I'll pop it onto the screen anyway. So I hope that I've sort of calibrated it to the intended target correctly. So what I'm going to do is, as you sort of see these shots coming up onto the screen, is hopefully you understand that really, in terms of what's happening to the result, isn't important. And that's, again, one of the things I've been having conversations with a lot of my online students about. There are going to be times when I would say that the ball flight is going to become very important. But when you're working on a technical change, then I would suggest not. So we understand that if we're going to try and whip the club through, it's pretty obvious. It's basically the functionality of the trail arm. But what you've also got to bear in mind is similar to when I was doing this sort of exercise, is you've got to move your chest, because if you don't move your chest, and I keep my chest very sort of still, then the whipping motion is going to potentially occur too early. So what we're going to do now, and what I'm going to try and demonstrate as best as I can, is to hit some shots. And I'm going to I've got a 6-iron here, so it's a club that's, not too easy, not too challenging to use. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to literally just sort of swing back. I won't do a full swing. And then all I'm going to do is, as I'm getting this feeling of firing that right hand through, similar to what I did earlier, I'm just going to simultaneously let my head look in the direction where it's going. Using your head and your eyes is actually really interesting. There's been some really interesting studies on how people can actually improve range of motion by using your head, right? So there is flexibility boundaries potentially with people, but also, your head. So for example, again, with recent students I've had that have got this type of backswing where they go, Russ, I can't lift the club up. And then what I'll do is I'll get them to do some swings where they actually look up to the sky, and all of a sudden they can improve their backswing quite dramatically. So we're kind of doing the same thing here in the through swing position, where we're going to concentrate on the head looking ahead before you hit it. Now, you might not be able to hit shots straight away, and I might not be able to do it very well either. So it might be worth just doing a couple of practice swings where, here the way I'm just sort of brushing the ground here like so. Right, let me hit one and let me just go and then cross-reference, make sure I'm aiming somewhere where I need to go. So it's a case of back and then head through, and that was a pretty good result. Should have missed just slightly towards the right-hand side. Let me just do a check on that. Yeah, okay, so we seem to be pretty calibrated. So, and that's all you're going to do. You're going to be brave, and this is sort of like a bit fatter, but probably a little bit straighter. And that's all you're going to do. You're going to just be doing lots of repetition when you're doing this type of exercise. Because like I've been saying to students, like I've been trying to say to a lot of my students, when you walk into a practice session, you need the clarity of what you're going to try and achieve. And then you need to try and achieve as many repetitions as you can with inside that sitting, like so. Now, the results are going to be wayward, but the whole point of putting the FlightScope on wasn't to show that anything other than the fact that the results are pretty irrelevant. But I just didn't want to do a video like this and obviously not demonstrate anything, me just hitting balls. So it just shows. But what it also shows is that, of course, you'll find this exercise quite tricky. to get started with. But this is the kind of exercises that, imagine if you did 100 repetitions like this, and then you did 300 repetitions like this, and then you did 500, and then you did 1,000. Do you see what I mean? You're very quickly going to get very, very good. See, it's the mentality that stops golfers from making swing changes and getting better. It's not really anything other than that. It's having an education of what you're trying to achieve, but really it's how you practice, which is where I'm spending most of my time again with my online students. So if I hit a few more here, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask myself what would happen if I looked even sooner. And all the head is doing, for clarification again, is it's just helping my chest turn. Now obviously with inside this practice session, I'm just going to concentrate on allowing my head to continue to move. But what I'm saying is eventually you still get the same feeling with your head staying down, and it still allows that chest to move. So if I hit a couple more, now obviously what you'll find is if I've only done 20 repetitions so far, you know, doing 200 repetitions might seem like quite a physical task, but that's the whole point of practice. So the way you're going to drop the club and whip it through is by quite simply understanding that your right arm is applying this sort of whipping motion through the ball and your chest is moving towards the target. And as you apply both of these movements, then you can start to hear, hopefully, well, at least whipping the club through, regardless of the result. So hit 3 more. So like I said earlier, a couple of things really, in all transparency. Let me know if this is the type of video that you would prefer to see maybe more often on the channel. And second, if you are interested, obviously my online membership thing, or my online academy, it does have limited capacity, because like I said earlier, I would fundamentally only ever sell something away from YouTube if I knew it was right, and that's why I have to do the swing diagnosis. So if you were ever interested, have a think about it. Whether it's something that you just wanted to take a little go on during the winter, or whether it's that you wanted to be a part of something for your development moving forward. Last one. And that's it. So I'm hoping this video is a good stepping stone to giving you confidence on experimenting a little bit more about your practice. See you soon.